Oh, fuck.
Putazos y Pendejadas Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's David D. I'm here with the co-host, with the co-most, Mark Salinas, and we are PYP Boxing. Mark, how are you doing this evening, my brother?
Good, man. I'm still at work, man. Still grinding here.
Still grinding. You're always on the grind, my man. A lot of things were happening this week. The PBC weigh-ins for Saturday night's pay-per-view happened earlier today. Had to be one of the fastest weigh-in events I could ever remember. It all happened in about 30 minutes. They weighed everybody in, interviewed them, and they were out, man. They must have been renting that venue on an hourly rate because they were not trying to waste any time. All the challengers look good. And Mark, you know how it is these days, right? Most of these weigh-ins are ceremonial, meaning it's just for show. A lot of the actual weigh-ins took place earlier in the day. All of the challengers look good because, yeah, they already ate, they already rehydrated. But I had my eye on one person, Mark. I was scoping out Pitbull Cruz. Well, you know that he's a small lightweight. So him moving up to 140, I wanted to see what he was going to look like. And I'm going to say something, man. He looked brolic, bro. Did you get a chance to see the weigh-ins, and did anything stand out to you?
You know what I did after I talked to you? I saw them, and what stood out to me was how big Pitbull was a few months ago, just maybe like 45 days, maybe 50 days ago, not 2 months ago. Like 50 days ago, he was
looking chunky, right?
Chunky guy. Yeah, he was looking chunky, and now he's looking slim, trim, ready, and doesn't look like a calavera, man. He doesn't look like a skeleton. He doesn't look like a calavera. He looks healthy. He looks
Macizo.
good. I'm surprised. I'm surprised at how fast he lost all that weight.
He did add some muscle to his frame. I'm a little bit more interested in this fight now. I kind of thought Brawley was just going to be the bigger guy, taller with reach, and just have more strength than Pitbull. But Pitbull looks like he looks like a little Pitbull, man. He looks really strong at 140. So that might end up being a fight after all.
Yeah, that looks like a fight. I was checking out the odds earlier, man, and I was surprised to see how lopsided it was. Pitbull is minus 300 or minus 297 to be exact. But I thought it was going to be a little bit closer. A fight like this to me was 50-50, but I was pulling for Pitbull, thinking Pitbull could catch him. But Vegas usually is always on the money. And I was not expecting Pitbull to be minus 300.
Yeah, that does seem kind of steep to me. That's really, really interesting.
Vegas never gets it wrong, so.
Well, they do get it wrong sometimes.
Sometimes.
So maybe they got it wrong this time. We're going to go into some predictions a little bit later on, Mark. But there were some plot twists that happened for this fight card. It's already been changed. Just a week ago, we had a change for the main event where Thurman got injured and Fundora steps in. It turns out now Elijah Garcia just today pulled out of this fight, and it was due to sickness. So he is not going to be on the card at all. We were kind of looking forward to that. So they are moving Curel Moton to the prelim. He usually fights after the main events. He's being moved up to the prelim, which will be free for Prime subscribers before the main event card begins on pay-per-view. He's 2-0 with 2 KOs, and he's fighting a man named Anthony Cuba out of California.
His real name was Joey Chicago.
Oh, yeah. He fought under the name of Kid Minneapolis.
Hey, I saw Kid Minneapolis fight once in Cincinnati.
No, you're thinking of Kid New York. He fought out of Philly.
He was killed in the ring in Houston by Tex Colorado. You know, the Arizona assassin.
Yeah, from Dakota. I don't remember if it was north or south.
North. South Dakota was his brother from West Virginia.
You sure know your boxing.
Yeah, Anthony Cuba. Anthony Cuba had a California 7-0 with 2 draws, and he has 3 KOs. So hopefully we get to see some rounds out of this fight. What do you think of Curel Moton, Mark?
You know what? I'm excited to see him fight. I haven't seen him fight, and all I've heard was all I've seen is all these YouTube videos hyping him up. I am happy that he's on the card. I was sad to see that Elijah moved out, but then pretty happy that I get to see this guy that everybody's making a big fuss out of. I want to see him. I want to analyze him. So I'm happy.
Absolutely. And hopefully we get some rounds out of this fight. All prospects, no matter how hyped or good they are, they need rounds to get experience. Hopefully we get to check him out and we get some action in the ring. Something else that I learned in an article on Boxing Scene today, also, Nonito Donaire, the Filipino Flash, he is training Michael Zarafa, who is fighting for Lara's WBA 160-pound title. I didn't know Nonito was involved in Zarafa's training camp. Zarafa, of course, being an Australian boxer, just kind of strange how that plays out, right? But it's good to still see Nonito involved in boxing.
Yeah, it is. You know what? I heard about this a couple of days ago. I saw that Nonito Donaire was doing a lot of rounds with the media and things like that. And then they brought them together along with Nonito Donaire's wife. What I do know is they met at some function. The kid came up to him, started talking to him. They sparked up a great friendship. And next thing you know, Nonito and his wife are in Australia training this kid. So they're both heavily involved, Nonito Donaire and his wife. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you know, anytime you have Nonito Donaire around, it's going to be awesome because he's a legend and you can pick up a lot of things from a guy like that. Hall of Famer for sure.
And also, Mark, in that article, we learned that Nonito still plans to continue to fight. He's not hanging up the gloves. We thought he looked pretty bad against Alejandro Santiago, but he still wants to continue his career. He says he's willing to fight at 115 or 118. He named Sonny Edwards as a possible opponent, and even at 118, Jason Maloney. Nonito's still looking for a title, even at 41 years of age. Yeah, it's a tale as old as time in boxing, where the veteran fighter still thinks they have one good fight left in them.
Well, I had the pleasure of seeing him fight what I thought was going to be his last fight. So I was really happy to be there, and I was waiting for a retirement speech or something like that. We didn't get it, but I was happy to be there, and I was happy to be at his last fight. But you know what? Sometimes you don't like to see a great fighter keep on doing it. Evander Holyfield, even Bernard stayed too long. I don't feel that with Nonito Donaire. He lives the boxing life, and sure, his skills have diminished, but I don't think he's going to embarrass himself out there. So if he wants to continue, go ahead. And he lives a clean life as well.
Yeah, so he might not be at that stage yet. I think he might still have a little gas in the tank. 80 or 70% of Nonito Donaire could still beat a lot of fighters out there. So we'll have to see how that turns out.
Although, hold on, I would be a little bit smarter with those fight selections. You know, Maloney's good, and the other, what was the other guy's name that you mentioned?
Sonny Edwards.
Sonny Edwards is not bad either, man. He's not bad. Those guys are good dudes. I don't know if I was Nonito Donaire, if I pick those guys, they're active guys and they can bang. Maybe I'd go with a lesser opponent.
Yeah, but he is going for a title, so that's what he's going to have to be going after, those types of opponents if he's going to continue on. Hopefully it ends well for Nonito. Don't want to see that guy get hurt. He's a really good guy, one of the best guys in boxing. Mark, there were a couple of fight announcements made. Bam Rodriguez versus Francisco El Gallo Estrada was made official. It will happen June 29th for Estrada's WBC super flyweight title. The fight will be in Arizona. That's going to be Bam's third fight in Arizona. It's becoming his second home. This is a passing of the torch fight. Do you think Bam has caught Estrada at the right time, or is Gallo in this fight?
Man, this is a really good fight. I think Bam did catch Gallo at the perfect time. Same. To be honest with you, I think if he would have caught him last year, it's still Bam's show. Bam has showed us that he's a unique fighter, and he's here for a long time, and he's going to have a Hall of Fame career, and he's extremely younger than Gallo, who's pretty much on his way out. Bam's ready for this. There's no question he's going to beat him.
I feel the same way, Mark. I think Gallo's a little long in the tooth. You got to remember he's 33 years old. That's pretty old for fighters in that weight class, and he hasn't fought since December of 2022. That was when he got the close win against Chocolatito. So I think Bam is catching Estrada just at the right time. This is also one of the old sayings in boxing where you have the veteran and the young up-and-coming fighter, and they're just passing the torch on to the next generation. This is exactly what this fight is about. And I think Bam is going to take care of business on June 29th. Jose Ramirez and Virgil Ortiz will co-headline a card in Fresno. Jose Ramirez will take on Rances Barthelemy, 38-year-old Rances Barthelemy. This wasn't his first choice. According to Oscar De La Hoya, he wanted to get fights with Ismael Barroso. He wanted fights with Sandor Martin. None of these guys were available to fight Ramirez. They couldn't come to an agreement. Virgil Ortiz will take on Thomas Delorme. I'm kind of disappointed in the choice of these fights, Mark. These fights don't seem to move either fighter in any direction. They're not going to be very competitive to me. But, Mark, there's a reason that this fight is happening. Tell us a little bit about that.
Jose Ramirez saw this as an opportunity. Nothing worked out for him as far as the guys that he wanted to start with. Oscar wanted to make a bang with him with one of those names that you just mentioned there. But since it didn't happen, Jose Ramirez saw the opportunity to have a fight in the Central Valley where he's from and give the proceeds to immigration reform which he works for really, really hard, and the United Farm Workers there. And he asked Oscar De La Hoya if he could have Virgil as a co-main event. That's kind of odd since Virgil is a bigger name, but Virgil was glad to do it because, one, he said Jose Ramirez is his favorite fighter. Two, he loves Fresno. He likes the cause, for the United Farm Workers, bettering their situation. And some of the money from this event will go to proceeds of helping immigration reform and trying to change better work environment for the United Farm Workers. It was really cool that Oscar De La Hoya, Jose Ramirez, and Virgil were there. They literally got on trees, picked mandarins by hand. So maybe a mandarin out there that somebody eats is picked by Oscar De La Hoya's own hand.
And that'll make it taste even better, right, Mark?
Hey,
well,
man,
Mark,
I'm going to go buy all the mandarins I can, baby.
Mark, there's no doubt that that's a good cause. Absolutely. I still can't get over how disappointing this matchup is, especially for Virgil, who is a guy that I think he's trying to get in the title picture, and he hasn't been active. That's not his fault. He had to deal with a sickness, a condition that was, life-threatening. And but he's not gotten rounds over that. I think he's had, one round in the last 2 years? And it was 2 minutes, and there was not a lot of work in that round. Disappointing choice from Golden Boy Promotions for Virgil, but again, this is a good cause. Virgil does want to fight 2 more times later this year, so hopefully they can ramp up the competition, because if there's anything this young man needs before he steps up his competition into that championship level, he needs rounds. And I heard he's on the WBA path, trying to get a title shot with Ismail Madrimov. I think this Madrimov is the WBA title holder at 154 pounds. That would be a huge opportunity for Virgil to get right back in to that elite picture. So, Mark, let's get into some predictions for Saturday night's card, starting with the main event. Obviously, Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. Who do you have? I can tell you right now, I think Tim Tszyu is going to win, and I think he knocks out Fundora mid rounds.
Yeah, I think he should win from everything I've heard, right? And from everything I've seen on Fundora, too. I don't think Fundora is a good fighter, but I'm taking this as a gauge to see what Tim Tszyu is. But from everything I've heard and from seeing the odds, I think Tim Tszyu should be able to win as well.
One more point, and I'm not trying to be too pro Tim Tszyu, Mark. Just one more little thing about him. Can we give the guy some credit for taking on this fight? I know you don't think highly of Fundora, but that guy is a nightmare matchup for most 154-pound fighters. The guy's 6'6", and Tim Tszyu's fighting this guy on less than 12 days' notice. Can we give some props to the man for that? How many people would take on a challenge like that at the last minute when you're preparing for a totally different opponent?
The other side is the same. The other side is the same. He had no idea he was going to fight Tim Tszyu. They just spotted up. They just threw it on him. Absolutely not.
But who has more to lose? Who has more to lose in this event?
They are both fighting for a big fight. Fundora's a known guy too. Both guys
not as known as
what
Tim
to expect.
Not as known as Tim Tszyu.
That's one of the reasons that I want to see this fight. Both guys had no idea they were going to fight each other a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and that is a big both of them have a disadvantage here. So I love it. Yeah, it's equal for both. I'm not going to give them any credit for that.
I mean, I'm gonna push back a little. I'm gonna push back a little bit. Fundora was fighting an opponent who is a puncher and very similar style to Tim Tszyu, whereas Tim Tszyu was fighting a very different opponent style than Fundora. So it's not the same. Yeah, there's a switch up, but the sparring partners for Fundora don't have to change, whereas the sparring partners for Tim Tszyu needed to change. So it is a little bit different.
The height thing. I mean, yeah, I give you credit for fighting the taller guy.
And a different style altogether. And Fundora is a power puncher. He is a power puncher. He's a knockout artist.
Big dude, okay. Man. I don't think I'd let any of my 154 fighters fight a Fundora, but he had no choice. It was a week left.
He did have a choice. He could have pulled out of the fight and said no. So there was a choice, and he decided to go forward with it. Yeah. So, Mark, did you say knockout or decision?
I think Tim Tszyu should win a decision. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen much, only highlights. But I'm going to see a full fight here. From what I've heard is Fundora has been knocked out, right?
One time, yes. It was a good shot by Brian.
And it was his last fight, right?
About a year ago. And he hasn't been in the ring for a year.
So he should win this. I'm not giving. I mean, he should. Everything just is in his favor. He should win.
Going on to Rolly Romero versus Pitbull, Isaac Pitbull Cruz. Who do you have in that fight and how?
I see a war. I see Rolly fighting way too open and Pitbull finding a way to get in there and ending the night. I don't think it's going to be an early knockout. I think it's going to be a war for a while, and Pitbull will probably knock him out somewhere between 8 and 10. But it will be a very entertaining fight.
I kind of saw Rolly winning that fight before, like just when it was first announced. I'm like, oh man, this is a soft touch. But after seeing Pitbull, he looks really filled out at 140 pounds. And when I think about the styles, Pitbull, we know, is a very aggressive fighter. He doesn't look good against a boxer. Right? He looked pretty ordinary against Cabrera, who isn't really an elite talent, but the guy he has some skills. Rolly doesn't have those skills. And I don't know that Rolly can fight off the back foot, which he'll need to do a lot of. So this fight is going to be two things. It's either going to be very sloppy with a lot of holding on the inside, or Rolly fumbling around, trying to fend Pitbull off, fighting off the back foot, and Pitbull, we know, can come forward and land shots. I think I'm going to go with Pitbull on this one. Put a couple of knockdowns, and I think he wins by decision. Michael Zerafa versus Erislandy Lara. Mark, I got to admit, I haven't seen anything from Lara in a while. I did check out some of Zerafa. He seems pretty ordinary to me, but I don't want to go against the Cuban talent. I think I'm going to go with the fresher fighter, Michael Zerafa. I know a lot of people aren't high on him. I just don't know how much Lara can turn back the clock.
Yeah, David, I'm with you. Lara is nowhere near the fighter that he was when we saw him almost 10 years ago against Canelo, or maybe over 10 years ago. But he's nowhere near that guy anymore. Although he still has the skills, they're just they're a little bit slower. He's still the slick fighter. He's just lost a step. And Nonito Donaire coming in there, he could possibly be a really great trainer, I believe. He talks about boxing. He's got boxing knowledge coming out of his ears, man. So just because of the Nonito Donaire coming in, I think we'll see a close 50-50 fight, hopefully a unanimous decision.
Hopefully it's not too boring either, and Lara doesn't make it. No, I got to say, I think he's been a little, as he slowed down a little bit, he's gotten into more.
He's had to mix it up more.
Yeah, exactly. Last one, Mark. El Rey, Julio Cesar Martinez, will be fighting Angelino Cordova out of Venezuela. Got a chance to look at some of Cordova's fights, and I got to say, I'm not that impressed with what I saw. I think Martinez is going to take this. Cordova's just a little too sloppy. I don't think he brings enough sharp offense to really offset Martinez's aggressive come-forward style. He has a lot of holes, too, so I think Martinez will be able to catch up to him as long as he's in shape and he had a decent camp. he should win this fight.
Yeah. Look, Martinez does need to be careful because I don't know if he did have a good camp. I'm just basing it on what I saw from him. He had big glasses, trying to hide his face. He was trying to hide his cheekbones. But there was no hiding that. He looked extremely dehydrated. His speech, you could see like that white spit coming out, that dehydration spit. His mouth and like his tongue was sticking to his palate. You could hear all that stuff. And you know how Venezuelans fighters are, man. Barroso surprised everybody last year. These guys are tough fighters out there. I hope he doesn't lose this fight because he didn't prepare, long enough.
As they say, Mark, failure to prepare is a preparation for failure. And it'll all come to light tomorrow night on Saturday when we watch the pay-per-view. I think I'm going to end up getting it. I'm just a boxing junkie at heart, man. I knew I was kind of against this pay-per-view, but I'm just interested in it now. And I think I'm going to push the button. I'm going to see what's going on for this first fight on Prime. Well, that's it, Mark. PYP Boxing. Another good edition of PYP Boxing, giving you the news that you need. We'll be back at you again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next one.